You're listening to the Casimir Engine Show podcast. I'm in a Holiday Inn in Glasgow, near the airport. All I've got to keep me company is a bag of Smarties buttons.
You're listening to the Casimir Engine.
That's me.
Hasn't that been done to death? Isn't that so 90s?
You think so?
Casimir Engine.
It's the Casimir Engine. It's not KKK.
And this week, I'm having a chat with a proper radio presenter, broadcaster, DJ. A proper one. Not like some kind of amateur like me. We're going to meet James Watt, who's worked all over the world, currently with the BBC. He's coming up next on the Casimir Engine Show podcast. That's the incredible Spray. Sometimes I wonder where the wonder goes. Try not to rattle all the equipment, Kaz. I'll put all the details where you can contact Spray, but you can find them through www.analogtrash.com. That's the Ricardo Autobahn remix. From the album Remixes Are Inevitable. If Spray ever listen to this, I'd love them to do Jenny is a computer and listens to the Casimir Engine Show jingle for me. Oh, that'd make my life. So, I was going to sing then. Sometimes I wonder where the wonder goes. There you go. That was Spray. Yeah, it's a bit of a different show. I'm currently in room 628 of the Glasgow Airport Holiday Inn, doing my day job. And I've set up all the gear. I brought it all with me. I've got a little kind of recording piece of equipment about I don't know, nearly 6 inches long, something like that. You can plug a microphone into it. You can plug a telephone into it. You can carry it around with you. Not Kaz. No, I brought off the cabling. They're using a power station with me. I've got plugs everywhere. I've got external sound cards. I've got 2 laptops and a mixing desk. Looks like... I don't know what it looks like. It looks a mess at the moment. So if the cleaners came in and had a look at this, they'd wonder what was going off. Anyway, I've just had... So, yeah, different kind of show tonight. It's pretty much all chat. We had James Watt from BBC Radio Derby, BBC Oxford, Great Yorkshire Radio, the World of Watt podcast, Showtalk.biz podcast. He's worked all over the world. We had him on the show. I was talking to like a professional, and we had him on the show to see what it was like, where he started, how on earth you used to become a DJ. And we had a brilliant chat. I'm going to sit back and listen to it and eat me Smarties buttons, my new chocolate of choice. I'll be back later to say night, and we'll all have a Born Vita. So we'll have a listen to James. Don't forget you can contact us on @Casimir Podcast on Twitter, @Casimir Podcast on Facebook, www.casimirengine.com.
Oi, Casimir Engine! I've listened to your show and it's a shambles!
So shall we start?
Let's do it, yeah, let's go.
I've got to be careful because I forgot my mic stand and it's wedged in me toiletries bag handle. So if there's a massive thud,
You can hear me well enough, can you?
it's kind. I'm switching myself down a bit so that when I can put it into, I've got like an editing software on my laptop. I can put it in there, and then we'll both probably be at the same.
I'll sit closer in if you like.
Yeah. No, I think you're okay. I think it's
All right.
Yeah. So, James Watt.
Hey,
Oh, good grief.
look at that. What are you good griefing at now?
Because I've just burst my eardrums. I have just burst my eardrums. I don't know what happened there, but anyway, we'll get around that. I'll just say that I'm the worst podcaster in the world.
So now we're now in quality, are we, Cass? Have you put my money in the meter? What's gone on there? You've made me sound like different.
We're in UHF now, so is it
UHF now?
Was it UHF?
UHF. I think it was UHF. If you're very old,
Yeah,
is
well,
it a UHT? Is it UHT? That's milk.
So, So you always wanted to be in broadcasting?
Always wanted to be. Always radio. I had a little radio station in my bedroom.
Right.
When I was about, I don't know, when I was about 10, 11 probably.
What was that called?
Called it Stray Radio.
Stray Radio?
Because it was in Harrogate, and there's a big park in Harrogate called the Stray, which surrounds the whole of Harrogate. In fact, the local station there at the moment is called Stray FM, and this was long before they existed. So it was obviously a great name for a radio station.
Obviously, yeah.
There's one with the same name now. And I used to have linked up, so I had a cable, speakers down to the kitchen, and we used to do the top 20 with all the records that I'd got. And it was interactive, so Mum and Dad would vote for their favourite number one, and then every week we'd see if it had gone up or down. It got a big chart and all that sort of thing. Dad's into jazz music quite a long way, so it wasn't always going to be the Bay City Rollers or whatever it was at the time. It was going to be some Count Basie job that was number one. or Dave Brubeck, Take 5, I think, was number one for a few.
Cracking record.
So we did the chart, and get down into. So I was broadcasting all the way from my bedroom into the kitchen with cables.
Yeah. And
so that's my first proper radio station. So I did that, but then I did the course in London.
Yeah.
And sent out my way. It's very difficult to get a job there. Now, here's the thing. Now, in the old days, the way you got a job, you used to make a demo tape, which is a bit similar to nowadays, but it was on a cassette. So you sent them off in the post, and this is before computers, kids. You then had to type a letter, and get your Tipex out, and send a cassette off to the bosses of the various radio stations. Now, don't forget, there are only 50 commercial stations, if that, maybe a few less at the time. And
50?
So 50.
No way.
Yeah, so about 50 commercial stations in the country. That's all. And the BBC local radio was probably about the same size it is now, sort of thing. So about the same. But of course, BBC local radio, as a general, didn't want kids on. They were going for an older audience, and so it was the commercial boys that were more suited to me.
Yeah.
And so I sent cassettes of me doing stuff, and like now, if you ever email anyone for a job, they totally ignore you, and absolutely, nothing's changed. They ignored you in the 80s and 70s, and they'll ignore you in 2020 as well. Absolutely nothing has changed. And I sent off, and I counted up. I sent off over 1,000 tapes to radio stations in the UK.
There was only 50 commercial stations, and you sent off 1,000 tapes.
The first station, the first station I got on, I had sent them 47 letters, and
oh dear.
And that was a station called Viking FM. That were the first ones to give me a go.
Yeah.
On the commercial world, apart from the BBC Leeds thing earlier on. But so I got on there for a bit. Now it's quite a long time ago now, so I'm trying to work out the road, because previously I had got a job on pirate radio in Israel, and this was at a station called The Voice of Peace, and the idea was Voice of Peace was going to bring peace to the Middle East, so it worked, obviously. And
obviously,
and
they didn't build that wall in Jerusalem to keep you out by any chance, did they?
No. So we were Voice of Peace. So we were on a ship about 3 miles off Tel Aviv.
Okay.
Think Radio Caribbean.
Yeah.
Okay, but slightly grottier, but sunnier.
Nice.
Sunny, hotter, but the ship, I think, was probably in the worst state. And this broadcast across the whole of Israel and in the Middle East. And our primary audience was kibbutzes, that sort of thing, lots of English speakers there, and anyone else that wanted to listen to that sort of stuff. And so, but of course, with no internet and phones, you got no idea who was listening, really. But we were told many thousands, if not millions, of people were listening to us every day. And I still get occasionally I interview people that are from Israel of the right age, and they listen all the time. And so I think it was a highly listened to station, but we were unaware of how many people were listening because no one could contact us.
So you were on a ship in Israel. You were living on a ship.
Yeah, living on a ship in Israel. Yeah, so a gang of just think Radio Caroline. So a gang of DJs out there, all playing the latest hits of the day out there, and then we had news at the top of the hour, and we nicked that off the Israeli channel, and in Hebrew that was.
Yeah.
And so when they said Zadafat had a shot, that meant we went back to the music, and that is, and you'll know this as you speak Hebrew.
Hebrew.
That is Zadafat had a shot. That is. And that is the end of the news. And that is the only Hebrew I know. And it hasn't been amazingly useful in my life, to be honest. But there you go. Zadafat had a shot. And that is the end of the news. And then we're back, hey, here's another great one from, whoever it was, Elton John or whatever it was at the time. So I did that for a few months. But when I was on board, I thought it was a reasonably dangerous ship to be on because I'm into boating. Because we did have a couple of fires in the engine room, and I didn't think that was particularly safe.
Were you moving around?
No, you're at anchor.
Oh, okay. I beg your pardon. There's no need to be rude. Yeah. See, comedy now. We never did comedy before. The rule was it was a bit like the pirates, because they sort of kind of said the bosses said this is a sort of legal radio station. Yeah. It was the word "sort of" that was always a little bit worrying. You had to be 3 miles off. Was the rule. If you were 3 miles off, you were safe. Okay,
so that was the day. So you could see Tel Aviv quite clearly 3 miles away, or 3 and a bit miles away, probably.
Yeah.
And you went out and back and forward. You didn't. Once you're out, you're out. In a little sort of launch, they sent you there. I mean, a lot of people have been through it, of an age, and it was one of the few stations that were playing pop music.
Are you still in touch with anybody who was on the ship with you?
No, not really. I mean, the only guy I was at, people might be aware of a guy called Howard Hughes that was Chris Tarrant's newsreader for many years at Capital in London.
Okay.
He was on for a while, but he didn't last very long because he got very seasick and he hurt his leg on the way up, getting onto the boat. So he was only there for a couple of days before he went back home again. So we weren't close personal buddies.
I'm just wondering, I can imagine that. A guy being seasick with a crutch. He's like the worst pirate in the world, isn't he?
So there we go. And I was one of the youngest on there, so I don't know if I got the bum's ship, because you had to do 2 shows a day to fill it up. Because there was you couldn't automate anything. You had to be live all the time.
Yeah.
You couldn't put a tape on. So I did 3 till 6, both ends of the day.
3 till 6 at both ends of the day?
Yeah. So
Good
3 till
grief.
6 in the morning, and then 3 till 6 in the afternoon.
Good grief. It's no wonder you describe your hair as salt and pepper on your bio.
Yeah. Of a salt and pepper. I've forgotten I've done that. So I did that. So it was very good. The Voice of Peace. It was very good from somewhere in the Mediterranean.
Well, talking of the Voice of Peace, did you have to have elocution lessons then? Because you don't sound like you're from Yorkshire, and you have got a radio presenter voice.
No, I didn't have elocution lessons, but my mum and, even though I lived in Yorkshire, mum and dad were not, they still live in Yorkshire, but they weren't Yorkshire people per se.
Okay.
Dad in TV and all that sort of thing, so he worked all over the place as well. But and mum sounds quite posh, I suppose. So she So
She won't listen to this. You'll be okay. She won't listen to
she
this.
She made sure I didn't sound Yorkshire, because that was doing me no good. Was it? Couldn't have sounded Yorkshire. And I knew early on I wanted to be. That's me digging. Don't worry. about
no, I was going to say if you need to answer it.
No, not at all. So I was as I knew I wanted to be on the radio. I think we made sure that we didn't have an accent, because of course having an accent when I was growing up on the radio, sounding like you do, Kaz, that would have been illegal to sound like you do on the radio.
Why did I agree to do this? It could have been anybody. No, it couldn't. I was desperate. I was getting desperate. It's either I'd have had to interview the next door neighbour again, and he's sick and tired of that.
Good. He was very good last week. And more stories about your shed. So I didn't have elocution lessons, but I did. I did have a bit of a lazy tongue when I was young, actually. So I had to get that sorted out. But that was no problem. They sorted it out. And,
who were your heroes then? Who did you want to be? I know you can't say sometimes these days, but who was the big? Was it? I always remember I used to listen to Luxembourg. When we're not far off the same vintage, we can't be that far off the same vintage. I used to live Tony Prince and people like
Prince,
that.
Yeah, I used to
Emperor
like him.
Roscoe.
Emperor Roscoe, yeah. I mean, everyone sort of says Kenny Everett and that sort of thing, don't they? And he was good. Liked him. I mean, I guess I must have been a bit older when I thought Chris Tarrant on the Capital Breakfast Show was good. I guess I must have been at my radio course when he was on there. I thought he was very good. I mean, it's interesting because there's not many that. I mean, Steve Wright on his Radio 1 days when he was really going for it with his afternoon boys and all that, the posse, loved all that sort of rubbish as well. But yeah, Kenny Everett and who else I liked? I mean, Noel. If you go back, and it sounds amazing now to even say this out loud, but Noel Edmonds was really good.
I can edit that. You're all right. Do you want to say somebody else? Well, it was Noel Edmonds and Ed Stewpot Stewart with the dog, Ruff and Hello Darling and all that kind of thing.
All that was I loved all that. But Noel did he did Breakfast Show on Radio 1, but then he did a Sunday show for a while. Quite a while. That was very imaginative. There was a guy I used to listen to on Radio York. When Radio York came on in the early days, it was very, very cool. It was a really cool station. And there was a guy called Victor Louis Smith that people might be aware of now. And he does some stuff, I think, in London on the Evening Standard and that sort of thing. He's a sort of a bit of a writer.
Does he wear glasses and he used to have longish hair? Yeah,
I'm not really. I've never met the guy, but he did a Sunday morning show up in the north called on Radio York as it was, and it was when it first came on, and it was called Snooze Button, and it was a bit anarchic Sunday morning, anything goes, stupid stuff going on, and he was very good at radio.
Well, when I was a kid, it was Radio Trent, which was in Nottingham, and that was Dale Winton. Was on Radio Trent for years and years, and then there was on Radio Derby, your current employer. On Radio Derby, we had Terry Christian. You remember Terry Christian of The Word?
I was on that show once.
No,
at Radio Derby. I'd been because I worked on the cruise ships as a disc jockey.
Okay, you're very, very sailory, aren't you?
Yeah. So I'd been on the cruise ship, been on the Canberra and QE2 and stuff like that as a DJ.
Wow.
Yeah. And in those days, on those ships, they had radio stations or a radio and it was a music service, but they had a couple of shows on a day with me playing requests for the listeners, and it went to all the cabins.
Yes.
And sort of saying, hey, what's on tonight? That sort of thing. And so that was good. So when I came back from that, I was on a break from it, and I was probably trying to get some real work. I got pointed in the way of Terry Christian. He did an evening show on Derby.
Yeah.
And I went in and had a chat with him. So I went in and was interviewed by him about life on the ocean waves as me being a disc jockey and gigolo, because that's what a disc jockey and gigolo.
Is that on your CV?
Yeah, you had to entertain the ladies. You had to go to dance classes and entertain the ladies in the dance class. Part of your job. And that's why I was. And I'm now a professional dancer because I was paid to dance with ladies on cruise ships. They do have people that do this now for a living, but I was, obviously I was very popular because I was a young, hunky man and the DJ on the ship. So there we go. So yeah. So I don't know where we got to, but there we go. So yes, I did Terry Christian. So I remember him on Derby all those years ago. Before he was famous. He wasn't really famous then. No, he wasn't.
No,
was he?
I don't think he was. No, he wasn't. Well, he was on Radio Derby. He wasn't famous. No. So you've just mentioned you've been on the QE2. You were on a ship in Israel. You've worked on kind of local radio. Have you ever had to kind of be a bricklayer or work in Sainsbury's or anything like that? No, I've never done that. And the closest I got to a sort of nearly proper job, I got some sort of temporary ad hoc work at Central TV in Nottingham. Yes.
And I was one of the finest people in the photocopy office.
Oh dear, we don't have photocopies anymore either.
Well, that's right. Well, often because we had to do all the scripts for the shows on the evening news, and I was, and if I was on Would I Lie to You, I was really a question writer for Blockbusters, because we photocopied the questions for Blockbusters for the studio, so I wasn't actually writing them, but I had a close involvement in the question writing of Blockbusters.
It's near enough.
Close enough, isn't it? I feel. But no, I've never had and I don't know, really, there are very few transferable skills from being a radio DJ to anything useful.
Did you have a mobile disco or anything like
that?
I
did have a mobile disco. Yeah, I did have a mobile disco because I used to work in the I used to work in Bradford Ice Rink for a long time.
I know it well.
And then I used to work in a few clubs in the Bally High. There used to be a lot of Bally Highs around the nightclubs with plastic palm trees in. Yeah. It was a Mecca brand. So I worked there. I was working there really before I was illegally allowed to be in a nightclub. But then I did a bit of mobile disc jockeying. Yeah. And I've still got all the kit, and I do pretend I go out and do it still. Okay. But I don't really go out much because it's hard work. Because you've got to put all the kit up and take it all down. And
that's the trouble. Like, nothing. Well, these days, isn't it all light? It's just a laptop and some.
Yeah, but you've got to put it all up. It does take you to stick it and put it in a car, and you've got to get there too early, and then you've got to hang around while they'll have their tea, and then you do a few things. If you're at a wedding, and nobody's interested really because there's only 20 people want to dance, and then you pack up at the end of the night. I mentioned this when I was in Germany, on BFBS radio, because that was a big part of me, radio life in the 90s. Yeah. So I was in BFBS, which forces radio around the world. I used to do a lot of Pira because I was quite well known in Germany because I was. Again, it was this radio station that went across Germany and beyond a bit. Yeah. And it went about 5 million listeners to the breakfast show that I was doing.
Okay.
Because it was on when we won the war all those years ago, the British obviously said to the Germans, right, we're having these transmitters, thanks very much, and we're going to put BFBS on it for the troops.
Oh, so the transmitters for BFBS are from the war?
I think that's when they got stuck up. I don't know when we might. I'm not fully au fait on the political situation, but my understanding is that when we won the war and we had to keep some of our guys over there, they wanted a radio station, and so they had BFBS was kind of invented.
So this is like Good Morning Berlin type thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And it really was. I mean, and it was the beauty of it now. It really was sort of Good Morning Vietnam for Germany.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it not having the internet, the sort of snooty bosses back in London had got no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
So you could do what the heck you like, and you were aiming your target audience for Forces Radio, and it still is today, is sort of squaddies.
Yeah.
So young men, and I wasn't far off being their age, and so we were being quite racy.
Oh, I see.
It. And it could be
James Watt was racy.
Well, when I was there, one of the time, I did a late night phone-in that went live across Germany and into the Balkans, which was Bosnia, Croatia.
Yeah.
And back in the 90s, there was a big peacekeeping effort down there, and a lot of troops based in Bosnia and Croatia.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the guys that went there were from Germany. Their families were based in Germany, British families, but they lived in Germany. Mm-hmm. So they were on did 6-month tour into Sarajevo or whatever, or Bosnia or wherever it would be. And we broadcast, my breakfast show broadcast in both places, and I did a late night thing on a Friday night to both places as well. And so and it was a phone-in. And this is before mobile phones. I know this is like, history for people.
Okay, so yeah,
so
phone-in before mobile.
So people would phone, and what would happen on a Friday night is all the wives would get together for a bit of a drinky and have a nice time because all their fellas were away.
Yeah,
and so they kept each other company. So it was a kind of like link up between the two of them.
Yeah.
So you could hear your wife down there or your husband back. But as it was late night, my routine was that I was in Germany, and don't worry, guys, I'll look after your ladies for you while you're away. Okay? And I'll look after them in every way possible.
That didn't make them feel homesick at all.
Yeah, that's right. So the girls had by the time I was on, it was 10 till midnight. The girls had a few sherbets. The guys didn't tend to, because there's a 2-can rule in the army.
Yeah,
you can only have 2 cans of beer a night.
Okay.
I mean, I think some of them said it was just 2 cans at a time. But there was only one phone in like Bosnia. There was only one phone they could use, so they were just in the corridor phoning me up all the time and handing it over to the next person.
Incredible.
And while I was talking to the ladies who had more than one phone, and they were phoning me up and inviting me around to their place after the show, and all that sort of thing was going on. So I did all that. So that was another part of my life, and that was quite. I won a big radio award out there and all that. But blah blah. Yeah. For my breakfast shows, which were legendary in Germany, and very popular. But as they were in Germany and you were in England, you'd never heard of them.
Well, true, but I suppose when you think about it, it's an important. That at that time, there's no YouTube, there's no Facebook or anything like that. The radio was your window on the world, really, wasn't it? Yeah,
well, that's right, because they knew what was going on. It wasn't. We didn't do propaganda with it. We were about our thing was to entertain, and it was to link with home. So it was to keep spirits up.
Yes.
Was what we were doing, and it wasn't hard. We were just prattling about being disc jockeys on the radio. But that's what so keeping spirits, because my breakfast show went out across Germany and into Bosnia and Croatia for its period there. But before that, I'd been in London doing the same sort of thing, doing it across the BFBS world. So it went on Hong Kong and Brunei and Falkland Islands and Cyprus, you name it. It went everywhere. And that's quite amazing at that time, because, again, before the internet, you couldn't listen to any radio station in the world.
Yeah.
They'd got us on now, so
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we got huge listenership, and that was massively important to the guys, and it still is. But less so than it was then, because you've got more choice nowadays. Yeah.
Exactly. And talking of more choice, you're up and down the motorways pretty much all the time. I mean, how many stations are you on at the moment?
Well, because I do Derby on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I do BBC Oxford on a Saturday. Similar title on a Saturday, so from 9 in the morning, with a similar but different show. There's different sort of priorities on that show, but it's good times and it's very up.
Yeah,
the Oxford show, the Derby show's very up, a bit more anarchic than Oxford. I work on a digital station currently as well, every day of the week in Yorkshire, called Great Yorkshire Radio.
Every day,
but that isn't totally live, as they say.
It's not old BFBS or whatever it was, radio shows, is it?
And then I do a podcast called Show Talk, and that's a sort of radio show as well, where all these people I've spoken to over the years, and some new ones as well.
Yeah.
I talk to those, and that's sort of people basically doing tours at the moment, out and about, and that goes out on various stations around the country. I mean, the one I'm tickled about it being on, because I like it, is it's on Radio Silly, which which is on the Scilly Isles, and so I'm on Radio Silly quite every Sunday with this interview show, which is me being a sort of bit more grown up than I am when I'm doing the real radio shows.
And you're on, is it St Albans?
St Albans, that's the same show goes out on St Albans. There's about half a dozen, 7 or 8, and I think I'm in one in Guernsey somewhere as well. To be honest, I forget where I am.
So you don't know, luckily you don't have to talk about the weather or anything, because
don't talk about the weather. No. So that's why I do that. So that's quite good fun. But the sort of main gigs are the 2 BBC ones at the moment. And then I used to be on the Beeb every day, doing Monday to Friday, but I stopped that about 2.5 years ago now, and I'm just fill in now when people are on holiday, and that's quite good fun, because the thing about doing it every now and again, is that when you come and do a week of shows, people think you're amazing because you put all your best jokes into that week, as if you're on every day. You get kind of used to it.
Yeah.
So I love doing that. Yeah, but you do a lot of travelling about.
Have you ever done the? You mentioned Steve Wright, I think, when we a little earlier. Have you ever done the thing where you work with a posse in the studios? Are you a lone? Are you a maverick kind of lone wolf?
But I've always been fairly lone wolf. Sometimes I've had what I've had over the years, and it happens more on breakfast shows. You have a travel person there, that you chat to when the travel's on, and you have a news person there you can talk to around the news. But it's been me running solo between those points. So I think it's best of both worlds in some ways, because you can do the stuff that is just for me and the listener for a bit, and then if you need a sort of batting boy, you can bat off him for that particular subject. And again with the news, and if you need a girl for something, you've got a girl to tell you off and all that, you're being sexist, blah blah blah, and all that sort of. So I find that quite easy, because the trouble is with some of these sort of zoo format shows, which are great, is they feel as though they got to talk to each other all the time about whatever it is, which is great, but sometimes they ain't got anything to talk about. Very interesting. And they're forced to do it because they've all been paid to be there. So I quite like the fact that you only do it. You can put the best stuff you've got with the relevant person you happen to be with. I mean, I'm not against it. I've never had the opportunity to do it as a sort of big zoo format show. I think it'd be great fun, but it's never happened. So perhaps nobody wants to work with me. I don't know. But
well, you mentioned Showbiz. Showtalk.biz. That's a podcast and a radio show. So that's the one that's on the Scilly Isles and in St Albans.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, I've listened to, I think, all of the... yeah, I have. I've even listened to the one with Robbie Williams' dad.
Oh, yeah.
And I've listened, and they're excellent. They really are. Now, you've interviewed a lot of people. I mean, I was looking at a list. You've got Jeff Lynne, Paul Daniels, John. I'm not going to mention them all. John Cleese, Brendan from Coach Trip. I mean, you. But I listened to one, and I'm a big fan. I don't know how I became a big fan, because I never used to like him when I was a bit of a punky type rocker. But Cliff Richard. Yeah. You interviewed Cliff Richard.
I interviewed Cliff, yeah.
Have you ever got nervous thinking, good grief, I've got to speak to Cliff Richard in a minute?
Yeah, it's quite daunting when you got someone like Cliff, because he's a bit of an icon, and he's been asked everything before. Yeah, and you've got to, don't want to ask too much of the obvious questions. So those you have to sort of think about a bit before. Which area? When they've been doing it for so long, you got to hone in on a particular area of their life and what you're going to, whether you're going to be the music or is whatever you want to talk about, about. And so it is quite nervous. And you've normally got a lot of these big stars. You haven't got long with them. You've got to get on with it a bit.
Do you just ring him up at home then, or I think he was he in Spain or America or Portugal?
Yeah,
or something?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think the interview that I put on the Showtalk show was a couple of interviews put together, because I've done it twice.
Okay.
If you do people twice, and if you've been doing it a while, or 3 or 4 times, you got to think of something different. But remember that half the people haven't heard the first one, so they got to ask those questions as well. So I mean, you've got to be. It's nervy, but I don't know if it is. You just get on with it. They're there to plug whatever they're plugging. Yeah. And so they tend to be quite happy.
So off mic, does Cliff say, James, don't ask me about that, don't ask me about that, and do not ask me about that?
I think, I mean, occasionally it's with sort of pretentious boy bands, they'll say, don't ask about girlfriends and all that sort of thing. But that's comes from the PR. I don't think the bigger the star, they care. I think they knew with the Cliff thing, when I was talking to them, they didn't want to go into all those troubles he said with the Beeb and all that sort of thing. And so, but I think you get to know the people that are setting these sort of, and a lot of the same companies are setting up the same interviews. Yeah, they know that you're not going to go down that route, and they don't really need to say it. They trust you to. You're doing a light, fluffy interview that might be interesting. Well, hopefully is interesting, but you're not doing a Paxman on them, and they've not signed up for a Paxman style interview. They've signed up for a showbiz interview where everyone can have a good laugh and you can find out some interesting stuff, and they may reveal some secrets, and that's all cool. That's great. So
it is. Have you got a team of researchers sitting behind you now who contact Cliff, Brendan, and say, right, we've got the great James Watt's going to ring you and wants to have a chat? Or do you do all this yourself?
That's all myself, really. Yeah,
really,
that's all me. Yeah. That's all me. And over the years, I've got a few contacts built up. But and what I say to them and talk to them about, that's up to me total. Yeah. So and we don't. Sometimes if you've got a producer with you when you're recording, they might have an idea, but they'll leave you to it. Really, it's up to you.
So, so on the radio, then the radio shows that you do, how do you keep them fresh? Is it Is it you sit there all week thinking, "Crikey, I'm going to do something about biscuits or whatever"?
Yeah, it can be really random. Because my Radio Derby show on a Sunday is quite random. Yeah. And I mean, interesting. We did a thing fairly recently where we got talking about a thing called Eddie Stobart Trucks and Truckers, which you know, of course,
Yeah.
Gaz, which was a reality TV show. And this is where it came from. It came out of me slagging off the Masked Singer.
I love the Masked Singer. Never
I know
ever
you-
slag off the Masked Singer. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's genius.
And we were saying my take on it was that it's great, but you've never heard of anyone that's behind the mask, because
That's the best part.
yeah. So you've got, and I think you might have told me this on Twitter that you said you can't. I'm like, who is it? I forgot. And you got the guy that's presenting it, I've forgotten his name as well. Who
who is it? I don't know who
only
he
just
is.
heard of him. I think he was on I'm a Celebrity. And anyway, so you've not really heard of the presenter either. And the American guy who's on that show thinks it's going to be Barack Obama and Tom Cruise, and it's some ex-extras from EastEnders, and that we've just about forgotten about. So I said to my listeners, we've got to think of a list of people that we've nearly forgotten about.
Yeah.
And so the listeners came up with a whole set of people like Jeremy Spake off Airport, and then a listener said to me, there was a guy called Mark something on Eddie Stobart Trucks and Truckers, and so and this all happens within the show,
Yeah.
and so it's a sort of evolving thing, and so then we sort of think about that, and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, so we find some bits about that, and then I started thinking about it, and somebody claimed they gave me the idea the other week as well. I'm not quite sure, they may have done. And I thought, well, why don't we do a TV documentary about the radio show?
Yeah.
And so then I thought, in the week, I thought, that's quite a fun idea. So let's roll with this a bit. And so then I got a mate of mine to do a few voices for me.
The voiceover was great.
The voiceover, yeah, because he's a pro voicer. He's an old DJ friend of mine. Lives in Dublin. Liam Quigley, who's on Radio Nova in Dublin.
Okay.
Every weekend, about the same time as me, actually, slightly later, but same sort of time slot. And but he's a funny guy, but as he's on commercial radio, he's not allowed to be funny because that's legal, as you know. So that idea came out of that way, and you come up with ideas about things. I mean, I did a thing a couple of years ago with the Royal Wedding Day Air. I think you did a song for us, as well, and they just come out of nowhere, and it could be a little tiddly thing.
Have you got? It's 4 hours, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
just
4 hours. Yeah.
So have you got? You must walk in with 4 hours worth of material, and then think, right, that one goes. We'll carry on with Eddie Stobart, or we'll do.
Well, I don't know I don't know how to tell you this, Kaz. But I often walk in with no idea.
You're joking.
Yeah,
I
think,
know.
I would think the vast majority of the time I have one or maybe two ideas, and they may not run.
So how far have you got to get into a show before it dries up, would you say?
Well, hopefully it doesn't.
No, but would you say you've got in your mind you've got your fixed features going through the show?
Well, yeah, we don't have many fixed features. We have a sort of I do a thing called on Derby. We do a thing called What's Work at the front end of the show.
Yeah.
That, and we used to do something else which ran for longer called the What For, which was really popular. We rested that for a while, and so we do this, and it runs for it could run for 15, 20 minutes, could run for half an hour, but that's probably about it. See, so by the time you've got to about 10 to 10, that's probably dead.
Okay.
And then the next 3 hours, 10 minutes, it's open season.
But usually between that, you'd something else would have cropped up.
Yeah, well, if like with the job thing, I mean, you might have the job of you're looking for a mystery job on What's Work, quite plainly. You might find you've got to have a texter might say a crazy job.
Yeah.
And that sets another thought process going off. And it's the listeners are kind of driving the show.
Yeah.
Even though they don't realise it. Because someone says something stupid on text or calls in with something, and then off it goes again. you might. I don't want to think of stuff like too early because it's of the moment radio.
Yeah.
So it's got to be of now, which to some people, some radio bosses are petrified of.
Yeah.
Luckily, the guy that runs Radio Derby loves that.
Yeah.
He's quite unusual in that, in letting his presenters.
I'd say that the majority of shows on Radio Derby are pretty much scripted, if you know what I mean.
Well, there's plenty of room for spontaneity, but there's more planning. And what you're going to have this speak to that person, then you're going to talk about this then, and you've got a radio feature about something then, and that works okay. And that is a much more regular way of doing it. To do 4 hours on the fly is quite worrying. I mean, I'm used to it because many years ago I used to do late night phone-ins.
Yeah,
and so you go into a phone-in where I used to go in with nothing and see what they phoned in with.
Anything could happen on a phone-in.
Anything could happen. Yeah, I mean, I did occasionally. I did 5-hour phone-ins.
5 hours.
Yeah.
So, what was the worst thing that happened on a phone-in?
Well, I suppose the thing is, if you're on a talk station and nobody calls, that's quite difficult. I mean,
has that happened? Other than show us your shopping must be the worst feature ever to appear on British broadcasting because absolutely nobody.
Yeah, nobody bought
any shopping.
Yeah, because it's a great title. You see, show us your shopping. So people go on a Saturday afternoon, which they do every now and again. People would come in. The idea was people would come in to the radio station and show us their shopping after they've been shopping on a Saturday afternoon. So it was ideal for a Saturday afternoon. We ran this for 3 or 4 years, I guess, and not one person has yet been in with their shopping.
You got that desperate. I think a woman rang and told you what she got in a cupboard or something like that. Yeah. And
then there were some people that on Show Us Your Shopping that were really upset about the whole thing, and they said we are not going to let people in that haven't got ID with them because it's against BBC policy. And I said, just let them in if they look like they're not a terrorist. And I think, that's still got legs. I think it still could be a big thing, Show Shopping.
One day.
I think okay. And people don't understand the beauty. And I think it's better that no one's turned up, to be honest.
Yeah.
So there we go. So that shows you shopping. We just... I mean, I think people think I spend quite a long time preparing it. And I have to tell them I do. Because otherwise I think I'm just slacking.
You must have been asked this one before. So on Show Talk, when you've spoken to Cliff and all the different people, who was the worst that you've spoken to? Nobody listens to this, so you're okay.
Yeah. Well, it's very bad. It's very bad form to say who's really bad, isn't it? Because there are people that you might think are going to be quite good and aren't very. I tell you who the one that was surprisingly disappointing, I thought, was Starsky of Starsky and Hutch.
Paul Michael Glazier.
Yeah, he was surprisingly not interested.
Who would you like to bag?
Yeah, interesting, because I think obviously they always say Tom Hanks is a massive one because he's such a performer and he's an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
I always think Richard Branson would be quite interesting, but I don't think he's a very good interview.
Oh right.
Whenever I've heard him interviewed.
Yeah.
And I really had a good chat with Rick Astley.
That was interesting. Yeah.
He's very good. I mean, him and me about the same age sort of thing. And he was just sort of so down to earth, and I got a good. He was face to face with me, so it was a good half hour with him. He came to the studios, and we did a good thing. And they're very and a surprising one I quite like is he's a classic classical singer. Russell Watson does. He's Alid and Russell are sort of a bit like a sort of sorry, Russell, sort of cheap Michael Ball and Alfie Boe.
Oh dear.
And we get on very well, Russell and me, and we can wind each other up quite well. And we've had a lot of fun.
Is he Yorkshireman? Is he?
He's from the northwest, so he's sort of Lancashire. Yeah, okay. But he's very good. I really like him. I like him a lot. I think he's got a lot of time for him.
He sang a Star Trek theme, so he's well up there for me. I mean, that's godly. That's But
Russell, he's been one of my favourites over time. And now I don't know if the interviews have been any good, but I've loved talking to him. I mean, they have been very funny. But
Rupert Holmes was excellent.
Yeah, loved talking to him because and that came. How did things happen? I was talking on my radio show where I was at the time about there being Rupert Holmes who played his song, a Pina Colada song, and we said that he's the only person called Rupert to have ever hit record. Yeah, and it's about true. I think it is pretty much true.
Yeah,
I can't think of any others, and so we said, well. We did a thing, couldn't find the others, and there were one or two, but nobody really famous. And then we said, okay, I wonder what's happened to him. And we went searching for him. And obviously, we got him. He lives in New York. And the gaffer at where I was working at the minute said, well, we can get him into a studio if you like. And so we did. And so we got him in high quality.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
And he travelled about an hour into the middle of New York to do the interview for us. And I don't think he does many interviews. I've never heard him anywhere else.
No.
So a guy from the Crickets, and then we got Peggy Sue on as well from the song Peggy Sue by the Ollie, Jimmy Naylor, and so I thought those were really interesting to talk to the real life Peggy Sue.
Yeah.
Who didn't become a pop star because the song was about her, and she was a plumber, and I thought that was like amazing.
Yeah, that was a bit of a strange angle, wasn't it? So, what are you doing now, Peggy Sue? Yeah, I run a plumbing company, or ran a plumbing company.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah. So I love all that, and so you never know who's going to come up. But people are pretty good as a rule. People are nice, they're good to talk to, and they want to talk to. And I'm quite good at winding them up. There's very few you talk to that are a bit dull, but you know who they are, and you don't put them on again.
You are good at winding them up. I can remember Jasper Carrott. You mentioned that he'd got no hair, and Midjor, you mentioned that he hadn't got very much hair either. So it was a bit of a theme over those two. So we can hear you on Showtalk.biz. If you search for that in Apple Podcasts and all that kind of thing.
Showtalk.biz, it's all there, and they get the radio show is nice because you get a bit of music with it. The podcast, you don't get. Oh no, you get music on yours, but everyone else doesn't. Don't
tell anybody.
So that's me. That's my show talk, and then the other stuff is mostly Great Yorkshire Radio every morning at 10, but that's a more music thing.
Yeah.
But I do speak occasionally.
It's 10:30 and the next one's by Elton John.
Yeah, that sort of thing, and a bit more. We're slick, but with a smile. Slick with a smile.
Slick with a smile.
Slick with a smile. There we go. And then what else we do? And that's about it, really. Oh, and then the BBC, of course.
Yeah. Don't forget the BBC.
9:00 on Saturday at Oxford, with a classic hits and headlines format to start with, which is it's just good. I just do it better than everyone else. That's all. And then what's work and what for and all sorts of other nonsense. Happy half hour, and then Sunday it's anything goes.
Anything goes on Radio Derby.
Anything goes. Who knows? But if you've got any ideas, bring it. Let me know because I'll nick it. I love it.
Hey, thanks ever so much for this. I really, really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thanks for because you've done me quite a few jingles over the years. So thank you very much. For that.
The royalties must be absolutely. I could retire soon.
Yeah, amazing. You can't believe how much money I'm making.
No, really appreciate it. Thanks ever so much for that.
Then. All right, good to talk to you.
So that's James Watt. You can hear him on Showtalk.biz podcast. You can listen to him on the World of Watt podcast, and you can catch up with him at the weekends on BBC Radio Derby, BBC Radio Oxford. And if you're in Yorkshire, Great Yorkshire Radio. I'll see you next week.
The Casimir engine, reliably mediocre.